Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us today with Mikey Haddad beside me. And out there in the cyber world, we have a new Level 4 engineer, Mr. Angel Otero there. Greetings, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Where are you at? Located, I should proper English.
I actually work in the Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. I live in Virginia, but I worked at Goddard.
Awesome. And what do you do there?
I'm the deputy study manager for the LISA project, which is a Laser Interferometer Space Antenna, which is actually an ESA mission, it's an ESA-led mission that NASA is providing three subsystems to it, a laser telescope and a charge management device. And at this point, we're what's called a study. We're not a project yet. We're becoming a project next year. So we're, getting all the early stuff done on getting the technology development and clearing out all the toll poles so that we can become a project and then proceed to do a hardware delivery schedule. And the mission right now is 2035 is the official ESA date.
Going to where, Angel?
It is actually going to be a constellation of three spacecraft that is going to drag behind Earth orbit and follow the Earth together, looking for gravity waves.
Oh, very interesting.
That is so cool.
That will be a big deal in there. Well, Angel, we're glad to have you with us here. 40 years ago, you were hanging around with this guy here, Mikey Haddad, who we've gotten to know. Mikey, you were on a year ago tomorrow with us. There,
you've been on doing shows. Wow.
Yeah, you've been on about 14 shows with us. We did a show last year on October 26th.
Okay.
And he came up with a great idea to talk about the shuttles of the month of October. We got the D1 mission here that we show. Marty, I do the images. They're going to show up over Mikey and me here, okay? So we're out of sequence there. Are we? No, yeah, we're way, there we are. I got Mikey's face up there. Let me go back this way here. And we appreciate you. Angel was in a meeting there real quick that we're glad you could come with us. And we thank Trekkie Techie, Jessica Galloway, and Marty Winkle for getting us together remotely with people. We've done this, Angel, with some of the ESA Eurocoms, Alex Carl being one. And we need to get a little more savvy at this as our Stay Curious program, born out of the pandemic in March 2020, soldiers on. So we're glad to be with you today. Mikey, we're happy that you have embraced our museum. Here is Mikey's book. Got it right here in front of me. Mikey and I have to have earplugs here to talk on. Space Lab Payloads, all right? I have it right up there, my copy in my hand. David Shaler helped you with that. Marty, we had David Shaler on doing this a year and a half ago, probably.
I think when it first came on.
Shows, on there. People that want to buy this book.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to add that a copy of that book is part of the National Aerospace Museum collection now.
From Angel. Angel made that happen.
There you go.
I used to work at the museum after I retired from NASA, so I sent them a copy of the book, and they accepted it.
Sweet.
They're actually doing an exhibit about, usually they do exhibits about famous people, right? The pilots, the astronauts, all that. They decided to do an exhibit about the regular people that make things happen in the space program, right? So they decided that one of those people was me. So they have my old KSC hard hat, they have my silver Snoopy pin and the book. And that's going to be part of their exhibit about the people that worked in the space program, the engineers and scientists that helped the astronauts get, work done in space.
Exactly. What building? What would be the location for people that are in the
that
DC
is actually
area?
the building that's downtown DC, the Aerospace Museum that's downtown.
Yeah.
But that museum is actually under renovation right now, and only the west end of the museum is open. The exhibit that I'm talking about is going to be on the east end of the museum, which is supposed to be open in a couple of years.
Sweet, up
That's
there.
so
I'd
cool,
been to
Angel.
Udvar Hazy a couple years ago and saw Discovery there.
I live 10 minutes south of Uberhazy.
Well, we're jealous of that, Angel, but you might be jealous of all these noisy rockets going off in the middle of the night around here.
I do miss that. I used to be a morale boosters, walking in and watching all of a sudden one of the expendable vehicles taking off. That was a good morale booster when we would see that.
Well, good. Well, there's a lot of booster morale these days on the Space Coast, and we look forward to seeing you here
Good to hear.
when you
Good
come
to hear.
around. And Mike, you're going to give us a great talk about uh, the D1 mission. A lot of firsts. Let me just set it up here with Mikey. We did want to comment about you tell us how the status of your as, astro restoration project to restore the astro telescopes.
Yeah, okay, that's an activity going on at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, and we're basically taking the original hardware. We've got the cruciform, which is the basic structure, that's up there. Whoopi, which is Wisconsin. I won't try to say the whole what the
Right.
acronym means, but that's one of the telescopes, as well as the
Ultraviolet photopolarimeter experiment.
You got it,
There you
Paco. Way to
go.
go.
I used
And-
to work with Whoopi.
Yeah.
I was a Whoopi engineer.
Yeah, so we're putting that basically together. We're reassembling the payload, that flight hardware. We got that from the University of Wisconsin in Madison.
Huh.
And the other two instruments are actually right now at the Smithsonian in D.C.
Good.
The Hopkins Ultraviolet Telescope and the ultraviolet, whatever.
UIT. One was UIT.
Yeah, UIT. We got those two are actually still up in D.C. And eventually we'll hope to get those down in Huntsville to integrate the whole package together. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Excellent. To restore these valuable instruments that were groundbreaking astronomy in this period of the shuttle's infancy, actually, there. One other thing we wanted to point out there is there's a handsome picture of you that I was going to throw up there, Angel, in your suit and all up there. And
I'm only seeing the Florida view. I'm not seeing
Yeah,
any.
we know you. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, we know you are there. But you got the script in front of you. Did Mikey send you pictures of that? And I didn't send. We
I did.
celebrate the shuttles of every month. We got 12 beautiful shuttles in October. 75 astronauts went to space. I think 16 of them were women. And we've got Donnie Dunbar on this mission.
I know
D1
Bonnie.
was the last mission launched on October 30th. To set that up, Henry Hartsfeld was the commander. We got that picture right here of all of them. Stephen Nagel was the pilot. James Buckley was on board. Guion Bluford was making his second trip to space. Bonnie Dunbar, Reinhard Führer, Ernest Messerschmitt, and Wobbles Okels from Belgium. Actually, is Okels, isn't he? 8 passengers, the most ever taken up to the shuttle in 1985. This is what we call the first third of the shuttle era before Challenger there, Angel, when everything you did was basically no one had done it before.
Right.
And that's what we're going to talk about. So I turn it over to you, gentlemen, to talk about the German Deutsch mission, D1.
Okay. Yeah, I guess starting off again, it had many firsts. One, of course, it was the first German payload. It was basically the level 4 operations was conducted in Germany. The first time again they flew 8 people, and also this is the first time the mission was controlled from outside the United States. Okay, and Angel was a big player in that he actually ended up going over to Germany to support the mission. We'll get into that in a little bit. So yeah, it was a lot of firsts in this mission. It was mostly Germany, but there was some researchers from France, Italy, Netherlands, Spain, Switzerland, and of course the United States participated in this activity. So we'll go to the next chart. So we're going basically starting with image 20, Angel, on there. Okay. Or let's see what we got here. It's actually image 21, which is the basically this is the cargo configuration again, showing the Spacelab module with what's called the Utility Support Structure, USS. There it was. I keep getting these acronyms. Anyways, behind the orbiter, behind the Spacelab. That's basically how most of the space labs flew. Again, we like to show the configuration of it. Okay, next one, 22, is actually the port side view. Now, I don't know if we can make this any bigger, but basically what it is this is the inside of the module. On the port side, you can see all the racks like we've had before. And again, the yellow part is the racks that are basically fit inside the module. Those are the pieces that were integrated in Germany. Normally, we'd do that in level 4. But that activity was done in Germany. But and when it got to the States, basically what would happen is like we've seen before in other Space Lab flows, then those, what we call rack train, would be integrated into the large module, which was a Kennedy at the time. But then there's still some things that we needed to be done, and we'll get into that with Angel on some of the hard work he had to do even after it got to Kennedy. Even though a lot of that level 4 work was done in Germany, we had things to do, especially if you look down at the bottom there, the sled. It's kind of like it's a sled that ran through the middle of the module, very, very important part of this mission, and that basically Angel will talk about that in a little bit.
Okay. And here's another
Okay.
pattern there.
And then this is next one would be the starboard side. And again, you can see all the different racks. It's hard to read, but the one that I worked on was basically, it was a holographic camera that flew on one of the racks. And that was kind of my piece of it. It was getting so busy at the time. We were so busy that the way it kind of worked is Angel, myself, the mechanicals, we do the structures, the fluids, all that assembly, and then the electrical software people would do the testing. It got so busy they'd actually got some of us from mechanical to help start with the testing. There was so much going on. And Angel, of course, was part of that. I had my first and only time I ever tested anything was a holographic camera that flew on this flight. And we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so busy time for the America's spaceships.
Yeah, this is late 1985 when all this was going on. Okay, and then this is basically the structures that flew behind. It's interesting that USS support structure, that black structure, that was actually made out of what? Carbon fiber. It wasn't metal. It was a carbon fiber structure at the time, which is very unique, very strong, and that was one of the things the Germans, they were excellent designers. Okay, so basically that's the starboard side. Okay, and then the next one, now this is the flow. We're looking at the 25 Angel. Kind of what happened, starting at the top, instead of the pieces coming to Kennedy like normal level 4, it went to Germany. Okay, so you start at the very top left of that image and you follow the arrows around. There's the rack integration, kind of like we used to do at Kennedy. They did it in Germany, and then you see the rack train, the third image over kind of on the top right. That's with the rack train all coming together, being tested there in Germany. In essence, doing level 4, but in Germany. And then it's, of course, all that gets loaded onto a plane. And then as you come down, you can see where that rack train then is integrated into the modules, which were at the operations and checkout building where we worked, where it got integrated and tested. Then, of course, then that all got put in the orbiter, launch, and landing. So we wanted to show this is a kind of a little different flow. First time this ever happened. And it was really interesting because you hoped that most everything was done in Germany. And as we know, things couldn't get done in time. You see Angel shaking his head because there's a lot that ended up happening in Florida, which some was planned, a lot was unplanned. And we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Was that common afterwards, or did you find other priorities to make sure that things arrived and you didn't have to do so much work on it?
Well, we always call what's called a pre-ship review, where we say, okay, we plan on that being in this configuration before we got it. So we had this all planned once it got there. Sometimes that pre-ship review would show that, hey, we didn't get everything done. And that would be a time that we would say, okay, well, what else is coming here that we hadn't planned? And then you really have to scramble.
Yeah, well, we found out, and this used to happen with U.S. missions, that nobody got everything done at their facility. So we ended up being the actual test engineers, because the first time that some of the experiments ran completely was down at KSC, right? So we ended up having to be involved in all that. D1 was supposed to be different because, like Mikey said, everything that we usually did was supposed to be done in Germany. And then we were supposed to just do a quick checkout, right? Slide it into the module and off it went, right? And we were told, whatever the Germans asked you to do, you do, right? And okay, so everybody had other jobs because we didn't think we were going to be that involved in D1. And it ended up being that they didn't get all the level 4 work done in Germany, and they were giving us work to do, engineer to engineer, to do all this work that we thought was done in Germany. And, some of the racks were not tested in Germany. They never got around to testing them, so we had to test them. And like Mikey said, this was the first time that us mechanicals got a chance to be test engineers, right? And it was challenging work, but very interesting.
What I like thinking about, Angel, and many of our space lovers watching today's program do is how these things you were doing 40 years ago are now routine up at the International Space Station because of your groundbreaking work. Am I right?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff we did was basically worked with the Internationals, which is the precursor to the station. So,
yeah. Well, Space Lab proved that the space station could happen, that you could actually have an environment in space where researchers could work. They called it shirt sleeve,
right?
That the researchers could work in a shirt sleeve environment. And Space Lab helped prove that that could be done. They were just mini space stations, right? A couple of weeks at a time. But it was basically the Space Lab modules were just slightly smaller than the space station research module that you have on station right now. So Space Lab helped prove that, as continuous research in space was viable.
Well, I love that. We can go out and see the space station going overhead a couple times a month anyway. I know you probably see it out there over the beach down there, and we love it. And how you all are, I mean, at the American Space Museum, Angel, we consider Mikey and you and Marty Winkle over there, another space worker, national treasures in every sense of the word, because you've done things that no one else has done before, and very few have followed in your footsteps.
Thank you,
the way
sir.
you guys did
Thank
it.
you.
So,
Actually, Uber Hazy has the IPS from Space Lab too,
oh, okay.
and then they, and it has a palette and it has the module for D1. It's actually the same module as Space Lab 1, if I remember. That module is on display at Uber Hazy, and I took my sons there once, and I was telling them, there were some wires hanging there that I put in there myself. And
Really?
They started laughing
How neat
because
is that?
it was so old. That stuff that he worked on is in a museum.
Yeah, right. The stuff you
I was
worked
trying
on
to
is in a
impress them, and
museum.
all they did was laugh.
They didn't put Dad in the museum yet, but
Not yet. They're working on that.
When I was at Udvar Hazy, one thing that I was impressed with, Angel, was the Corona satellite. Here I'm looking at this spy satellite that had film on it. I always wondered how the film worked on that. And you can see for yourself right there the whole thing at Udvar Hazy. So we digress because we're space lovers talking about things.
Yes.
We're going to get this Deutsch 1 module up with a commander had been up 3 times. You got 2 other people been up twice, and then 4 rookies. The scientists going up here. 8 people. Quite a mission.
Okay, so this next picture, this is 26. This is with you and Scott in front of the car, Angel.
All right.
Yeah.
Scott Vaughan.
That was
Yep, that's Scott Von on the left.
Okay.
Yes, that's Scott. Yeah, Scott, Donna Dawson, and a couple of other people, and I went to Bremen to the Erno plant to work with. It was called DFVLR back then. It's DLR today, but it was DFVLR before the unification of Germany, on their level 4 work. So we wanted to go, and to be honest, I don't remember what we did at the meetings. I remember Scott and I leaving the plant to go to Bremen to eat at a McDonald's because we didn't like the lunch they had, And this picture is basically, I think we're pointing at the sign because I think it said Mini. And, 1984, we're still into big cars in the U.S., right? And I think that car, Scott and I could have picked it up and moved it ourselves, right? It was so little. So we were just walking on the street and we see this toy thing, parked on the side of the road. So we had to take a picture of it. And this was an experience for me because I'm from Puerto Rico. And from Puerto Rico, I went to Florida. And then NASA sends me to northern Germany in November.
Wow.
I was freezing my you-know-what off up there, right? And everybody was laughing at me because I was so cold up there. But that's what that picture is about. We were coming out of our meetings at the Erno plant, and we saw that car parked on the side of the road, and the name of the car was Mini, and I think it's a Cooper. And I don't know what.
That's original Mini Cooper. What would that be worth today?
But back then, I had no idea what it was. I just saw that tiny car, and it looked funny to us, so we had to take our picture with it.
But it was good because that basically prepped. They got to learn about what was going on in Germany to then be prepared for once all that got to the States. It was critical that they went to Germany.
Yes, yeah.
To those meetings.
And, to help them understand that what you had to do at level 4 and what was going to happen when they came over to the U.S. with the racks.
Right, because you met the people, right? You met the people that were going to be coming and all that.
Yeah, we met all the guys that were going to come over and work with us because I think they integrated the racks on the floor. Like I think 27 is showing that.
Yep, that's
right.
Yeah.
So they put that in the guppy.
Yes.
And brought it over.
Mm-hmm.
And then at KSE, it got slid inside the module.
Yes. Yep.
And then all the connections were made, and we started doing testing.
Yep.
Well, we say hi to Scott Vaughan. He's contributed to our program. Can't wait to have him back again on there. And we got some plans also for our Shuttle Fest in April. And it sounds like we'll get Angel involved a little bit that too. We love celebrating the shuttle era, 30 years that has changed the way man lives today.
If you ever do one on Space Lab 2, I would love to participate on that one.
Well, we will. We got Astro 1 and 2, and we're going to do Magellan and Galileo, 30 and 34, and its team is astronomy. They're not just astronomy missions. Each one of those missions had communication problems on the Astro 1 mission that you might recall, that, and then you're going to help us with. And Centaurs. A lot of people don't understand the Centaur second stage that was revolted against by everybody, putting liquid fuel
Oh,
rockets
you're
in the
talking about
payload
the
bay.
shuttle,
Yeah,
shuttle Centaur.
Shuttle Centaur,
shuttle
yeah.
Centaur.
I
And
actually did
and
a
then
detail
and also they
with
were
the
RTG missions 30 and 34.
yeah.
Go ahead, Angel. About the Centaur, though,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I did a detail over on the what we call the launch vehicle side, and I was involved in the detanking of the hydrazine from the Galileo after Challenger occurred, because Galileo was already integrated into the shuttle Centaur
Oh wow.
to go, and I remember going to the pad to look at how we're going to do the oxygen and hydrogen skids, because we were going to load the fuel into the the Galileo, or no, sorry, the shuttle Centaur at the pad and all that. And then when Challenger happened, and as you call it, the revolt happened, and as I recall, the main issue was return to launch site,
Mm-hmm.
that the CV of the valve on the shuttle Centaur wasn't large enough, because they had to dump all the fuel. They were not going to try to land back at KSC, which was never a realistic scenario, by the way. But
Right.
that was a company line back then, and
Yeah.
they could not try to land with a fully fueled shuttle Centaur. So they had a valve at the side of the shuttle that was supposed to dump the fuel out so they can come in.
Yeah.
And they could never prove that valve could dump all the fuel in a timely manner.
Wow. And all
So
this great
before
history of the
Challenger,
shuttle.
there were still people, poking each other about it. But then after Challenger happened, they finally decided, okay, that's not going to work. They canceled Shuttle Centaur, and then we had to deintegrate Galileo from Shuttle Centaur, send it back to JPL, because then it had to, when they finally, I don't remember what rocket they ended up putting it in, but they had to keep it at JPL until they could redesign whatever they needed to do, find whatever other rocket, if it was an Atlas or a Delta, I don't remember where they ended up putting it in.
Well, we put it on an IUS.
A
And then
PAM,
flew it on
yeah,
the shuttle.
IUS, like
Yeah.
a PAM.
Oh,
yeah.
it ended up back in the shuttle, but on iOS.
Yeah,
Okay,
IUS,
that's right.
yeah.
Sorry, it's
Well,
40 years
so
ago.
there's our Shuttle Fest 3. There's our Shuttle Fest 3.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah.
precursor,
This
right?
year.
Yeah, so
Things
I
like
was
this.
involved in the detanking of the hydrazine at the VPF for that, and that's a
Awesome.
couple of interesting stories about that.
Oh,
whole
we want
process.
to talk to you about that. We're going to do that April 13th at the Hyatt Place. Marty, about that return to launch site, Marty, would you mind paraphrasing what Mr. John Young, astronaut, said the chances of that occurring were? Remember John Young said about the return to launch site?
Yeah, it was a series of miracles. I forget exactly what it was. I
It's
can
like
look
a
it up.
series of small miracles folled by a few
Acts of God.
acts of God. Yeah,
Jeez, that sounds like John
that's
Young.
that was about right.
is what an RTLS did on there.
Mhm.
Well, we can get off course here a little bit talking to you shuttle guys, because Marty and I love it.
There's so many stories.
And you're that's what we're all about here, sharing these stories. Well, let's get on with this mission here then.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, the next picture, which is 27, this is the rack train actually in Germany. It looks like Kennedy. Looks like exactly what we do at Kennedy, but this is in Germany. And this is them setting up the rack train for shipment to the United States. And then the next photo is actually with the enclosure that went over the top of that. Their big enclosure to protect all this during the flight.
Hey, Mikey, I still have my blue smock that I traded the Germans for a bag.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right.
Well, I still got this
That's how
guy
we know.
here.
That's how we know it's not KSC,
I
because
still-
of the
oh, you
blues.
can't see
the
this on the
blue
thing.
smocks around.
I still
There
got
you go.
the D1 sticker.
Yeah.
38-year-old sticker. Anyway, so cool.
Yep.
Yeah, it's cool. We kind of keep on this. Keep
I
this
know it. We've got that's what we love at the museum. We got some of that stuff.
Okay, and then
And
the next
offered
photo.
on eBay and auctions too.
Oh, we can, yeah. We're really gonna hold on to that. And then here's a picture of it actually in the aircraft. You can see it in the aircraft. I think it was a C-5A that brought it over from
The guppy.
Germany. Yep. Okay. Okay. Now this next one. Now once it got there, there's a number of things that had to happen. This is it's an interesting image.
Tell him what you're looking.
Yeah, we're looking at the image 30 on this one, Paco. It's called a vacuum vent line. This is something that could not be installed until it got to Kennedy. Okay. And my cousin Eli Naffa, who actually got me my job at level 4, he was a co-op. If the co-op, when people understand what the co-op program is, it's where you're still in college as studying to be engineering, and what you do is you actually get hired on as kind of a part-time worker. And what it does is you go to school 1 quarter, and then you go to work 1 quarter. Well, my cousin Eli was a co-op in level 4 when it first started. And basically what happened is because, again, we got so busy, and this is stuff that was unplanned, he was the one at the co-op. Here he's a college student, not even graduated yet. And he's putting together flight hardware for this mission. That was the vacuum vent line. And this is what I try to show with the arrows. It's kind of hard to see. This is actually an on-orbit picture in the feet of Octal. That's his feet. But I tried to show the vacuum vent line
Has
with the arrows.
someone's feet in there?
Yeah,
I
he's
wonder
up kind
what
of
those
upside
were.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
I put it right side up. He's actually
Okay.
that's the ceiling, but he's upside down. So this is actually the ceiling's on top, kind of the right way the module should be. He was just upside down for the photo. But it kind of what it shows a vacuum vent line coming out of one of the racks, and then actually there's a port on the back side of the module that vents to space. Okay, well, you need vacuum, right? What's a better vacuum than outer space? Okay, so it's it's basically a beautiful vacuum pump. Of course, the problem is if that system leaks, you just sucked all the atmosphere out of the module and the orbiter, okay, and it all goes to space, and it's very, very bad situation. So his job was to basically make this vent line, put it in work, and make sure it didn't leak. Okay, being a vacuum vent line, you think, why has he got to worry about leaks? So he was basically, as a co-op, did that, and they had to land in a lot of problems. They had drawings on this that really didn't work. And so he basically, his procedure, he said when I finally got done talking, he says, it was red because of all the changes. This is what they planned. This is what it took to put it in. It was all red. It was all changes that they had to do. But he got it to work, and it was very successful. But I wanted to show that as just one of the things.
He didn't get a Snoopy award for that.
He should have. As a
that
co-op.
sounds like one of those Snoopy things out there. Yeah.
He was like 18, 19 years
wow.
old.
And how did he end up? Or did he pick up a guitar and tour with?
Well, he ended up actually. He got me my job. I came in there, and then he actually went to work at Lewis Research Center as an engineer.
Okay. Stayed in.
And he got me my job at the Lewis Research Center.
And tell everyone again who you're talking about.
Eli, yeah.
It's Eli.
Eli.
Yeah, Eli was working at, it was Glenn today. It was Lewis back then.
Yeah.
And I wanted to transfer because my ex-wife was from Ohio, and I was trying to move from KSC to Ohio, and I had no idea how to do it. And Eli lined up like 4 or 5 interviews for me at Glenn or at Lewis. So I went up there in Ohio to visit my in-laws for Christmas one year in 88. Yeah, Christmas of 88. And Eli had lined up all these interviews with me for people. And I did not get hired by the guys that he set up, but some of the guy heard I was there, and he offered me a job because that job sounded better to me than doing Space Station. Space Station was a paper exercise to me at that point because it was still in the design phase. It was freedom back then still. So Eli was, I love Eli. Eli is a great guy.
That's awesome.
But I have a story about that vent line.
Go ahead, Scott.
Like Mikey was saying, when we're in space, they open the valve to space, right? And all the vacuum you need is just opening it to space. But on the ground, when you're doing testing, how do you get vacuum so you can test? So you have to hook up a vacuum pump, right? So I was doing a test on the Medea, MEDEA experiment. And when every job we did, there was a NASA engineer and a German engineer, right? So I was inside the module with a German engineer getting ready to test the rack. And there was a vacuum pump outside that connected to the vent line port on the module. And then outside the module was a German engineer and another NASA engineer, right? And then because I was in the module, I had a quality guy with me also. So when we started testing, turn everything on, and I'm sitting there and the pressure's not dropping. The pump's running. We supposedly had the valve open. Nothing's happening. So I stick my head out of the module to ask the guy what's happening. And then the 2 German guys started talking in German. Well, the other NASA engineer was Hector Barrero, who was also Puerto Rican. So I started talking in Spanish to Hector. And the German guys kind of went, whoa. And I said, well, either we understand each other or nobody understands anybody.
Oh, that's good. Good for you.
Because that was a tactic that the German guys used to do when they didn't want NASA to hear what they were saying. They would switch to German.
It's true. Yeah,
right.
Story.
And actually, I took a semester of German at Brevard Community College, getting ready for D2. So at least I could say more than "Ein Kalt Bier bitte" to the Germans, right?
Which means what?
One beer, please.
Oh yeah, right, yeah,
One
yeah,
cold
right.
beer.
One cold beer.
Cold beer,
Please. If
yeah.
you ask for a beer, they give you a room temperature beer in Germany.
Yeah, that's about all the Russian I know. TP she's pivo
Oh,
Yeah.
is do you want a beer?
okay.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, but great story there, Angel. Appreciate you chiming in there. This is like I said, there you go. You learned a little bit about. They probably have a protocol now that you have to speak English only in the work environment or
Well,
something like that to
well, that's
prohibit the back talk in someone's other language. Does that happen?
well, that's critical, and that's good.
Hmm.
That's a good point. What we had in level 4 is because things came from all over the world. So there's all these different languages, all these different processes, all these different ways people did something, and there's no way that we can learn 8 different processes.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it was the the ground rule was you had to speak English. Everything had to be written basically in English. We had English units. We could do metric too, but we did English units. And the process that we used at Kennedy, everybody had to conform to. So, okay, they had this way of doing procedures and writing procedures. That's fine. But when it came to Kennedy, we couldn't adjust to them. And then, okay, the Japanese do it another way. We adjust to them. And then the French do it another way. It wouldn't have worked. And so they basically, so it was all nice and integrated. They had to conform to us. And it worked very well.
So, Angel, it was the imperial system of inches, and not it wasn't never crossed over. That some of the European things you worked
No,
had
and
metric on them.
well, the interesting thing was that the space lab was designed in Europe by ESA, right, for NASA. So all the drawings were in metric units.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember once I wanted to ask, I think the leak rate was it was something like milliliters per liters per second or something like that. And I went to see my section hand at the time, Stan Ewing. Remember Stan?
Oh, yeah.
Mikey?
Yep.
And because I was used to standard cubic centimeters per second, that I understood that as a leak rate, right? Even though that's metric too, but this other one, milliliters per liter per whatever. So I spent 15 minutes in Stan's office with him with the yellow stickies writing conversion factors for me. Who after 15 minutes, I'm holding a stack of yellow stickies to find out that it was 1-to-1.
Oh,
So it was the same as, and I'm like, Stan, you could have just said 1-to-1 to me 15 minutes ago, and I could have gone back to my drawings and kept doing my job. But he did all the conversion from, Stan's milliliters per liters per second, whatever, to standard cubic centimeters per second, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't need the class. I just needed the number, right? It was
There you
1-to-1.
Yeah, he was one of the engineers there. Was an
That's
amazing
cool.
guy.
All right, let's press on here with another aspect of this.
Okay, this one, basically, this is a procedure that I wrote to do the maintenance for it's a holographic experiment, basically powering up lasers. And the problem here was lasers are a hazard, and they strict control over, so people don't get hurt. Now, this is inside a rack, inside a camera, but still there was a lot of precautions. This is basically the cover sheet to the procedure that I had to write to do that work. And it was fun. It was my one and only experiment that I actually tested, and it was successful. During the mission, actually, a problem with the camera, so the mission results weren't that good, but we were successful on the ground with that. Okay, now this last one here, not last one,
I
but
see
this
the
is,
rail you talked about.
yeah, this
maybe
one
there.
is 32, and you can see the sled, the rails and the sled. This is basically a closeout photo, what D1 looked like basically when it was basically closed out, ready, almost ready for flight. And at this point, I was going to turn over to Angel because he did a lot of work on this mission to make it successful that wasn't really planned. And so take away, Angel. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. So like Mikey said, that's a picture of the sled. And one of the first things I did in my job as the sled integration and test engineer was throw away Guy Buford's back support.
Okay.
Because when the sled got shipped from Germany, they had the seat, the backrest folded into the seat. And in between the two, this chunk of foam that was not wrapped in plastic, did not have a parse tag on it or anything like that. It was just a chunk of foam that was dirty, right? If you touched it, it would, chunks of foam will come out of it, right? And that's not what you do on flight hardware, right? So the Germans could not tell me what that was, so I threw it away. 2-3 days later, another German comes by and asking me if I knew what happened to Guy Buford's back support. and I asked him what it looked like, and he said, he told me what it was. I said, oh, I threw it away. And I thought the guy was going to die. And I said, you cannot have something that's contaminating the flight hardware sitting in there. You didn't bag it. You didn't tag it. So it was a foreign object. So I threw it away. right? So they had to make him a new one.
Guy Bluford, astronaut, making his second trip to space.
Yeah. So I had to integrate the sled into the floor of the module. And one of the things that we're doing was they were trying to build up some ground-based data of what happens to you when you're riding the sled. So they wanted test subjects. And I figured, well, I'm going to be the test engineer for the sled. So I volunteered to be a test subject for the sled, right? And the idea, one of the things they're supposed to do with the sled, they gave you a joystick. And the sled was programmed to send you in one direction, and then you were supposed to react with the joystick and send, and if you did it right, you were supposed to stay in the middle going like this, because every time he tried to send you that way, you correct it. So it would just, keep going like this, right? And because I have hairy arms, they put this thing over my arms so I couldn't feel the air current. So I could guess, because you're blindfolded, so you can't see, right? So the first time
Cheers at the end there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first time we did the ground test, that I was a test subject, I'm sitting in there. Oh, and they strap you in. So actually it requires someone else to come and unstrap you before you can get off. So I'm sitting in the sled, blindfolded, all tied up, all covered up, listening on the net to all the commands they're doing, getting ready to, run the sled. And when they said, okay, start, and I shoot down those rails, I hit something like really hard. And I went like this, thinking that I'm in the process of flying off the end of the sled. I'm about to hit the wall, right? So it got really quiet. And then I hear the test conductor come on the air and say, "Oh, sorry, Angel, we forgot to remove the rails from the end of the sled." So there was those are the flight rail covers, but they have some other ones for the ground sled that were not that long, and they forgot to remove the last pair. So the sled seat ran into those with me on it, right? Well, I won't tell you what I said on the net to the guy that was running the test, right? But so then, we did a lot of testing on the sled. Excuse me. And actually, I thought that was the reason why they were sending me to Germany, is to help, because the first time we tried to run the sled on the ground, we couldn't run the test because the way it was supposed to work, the astronaut was sitting on the sled, whatever he was saying, the PIs on the ground wanted to hear, because, it's about how you're feeling. They're trying to make you sick, right? While you're on the sled. Because at least they didn't do this to me, but in flight, they had a tube in the left ear and a tube in the right ear, and they were blowing cold air in one ear and hot air in the other.
Yeah.
To try to mess with the vestibular system, right?
Ooh,
while they're doing,
That's
sliding up and down. Unbeknownst to me, there was an internal battle between the astronauts, the European astronauts, and the PIs, because the astronauts did not want to admit that they were feeling sick on the air. They wanted to be able to just tell the other astronaut without anybody hearing, right? So I'm trying to understand what's going on, and they're telling me, we want to use air waves. And it took me a while to realize that air waves, man, they just wanted to talk to each other. They didn't want it to be heard on the net. And then beyond that, apparently the guys that were doing the sled in Germany did not understand the Spacelab intercom system correctly. So when we tried to run the test, nobody could hear anybody. And all the, things were set up wrong. And we were, trying to let the Germans do their thing. We're supporting, they're leading. But it got to the point that I said, you know what, screw it. I'm in charge now, because you guys can't figure it out. You're driving me crazy. We're spending all the hours here and nothing's happening. So I got in touch with the McDonnell Douglas intercom guy that knew the Spacelab intercom system. And he gave me all the specs. And over the weekend, I lived in Cape Canaveral at the time. I had a house with a roommate. I spent the weekend going over all the specs, and I rewrote the procedure so that we can then do it the way it's supposed to happen. And then we tried it the next week, and that worked.
Yeah.
So that was one of my, my first interactions with the sled.
Yeah, a lot of work. A lot of work to make that happen.
And there's the sled, the chairs at the very end of it. They said there. How did it work in space? Was it just how many astronauts actually did it? Bluford and who else there? Angel.
I don't remember.
Okay. Just
Because actually for the mission, when I went to Germany thinking that the sled guys, because I was told that ESA or DFELR asked NASA to send me to Germany for the mission. And I assumed that it was the sled guys because I did a lot of work, testing the sled. But then when I got there, the sled team didn't need me or didn't want me.
Huh.
So I attached myself to the Medea team. And that's a whole other story where I ended up.
Yeah, we got a couple of charts there.
We'll get to that one. But
Oh,
all right.
okay. One thing I want to real before we get off of this photo, two things. One, basically the only involvement I had with the sled was there was some stuff that was going on. Angel said they had problems, and so they needed whoever was at the time needed to leave. They were heading to the airport. Okay. Well, when we were in level 4, we had a deal with the photographers and photo guys that because it was so critical, they had to be basically if we had a request, they had to be there in an hour. Okay. A lot of times it was 24 hours because we were basically up against the wall. Theirs was an hour. Well, they needed to get this video of this problem. And we called them up and they said, we can't support you guys. So I grabbed the video camera we had in our office and I went down there while Angela was doing the work and I videotaped it. It was on these little VHS tapes at the time. And so I took the tape out, handed it to the gentleman. He jumped in the car and ran to the airport, right, to show them the people that was the problem we were having on video. Well, a couple of days later, I got called into my boss's office, Dean Hunter, who was our chief engineer at the time, good old Dean. He says, Mike, I got a grievance written against you. I go, what? He goes, yeah, there was a still photographer in there knows that you weren't part of his office and you were videotaping and you're not supposed to do that. So I told Dean the whole story about, hey, we needed the video. The guy was leaving for the airport. I just ran down and did it. Dean says, okay, that's fine, Mike. You can go back to work. Never heard anything else. So I'm sure there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that happened to keep me from getting in real trouble, and Dean was the guy that's kept me from getting in trouble.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was one. And then
Dean had a lot of practice with dealing with grievances against us.
Yeah.
He did. Okay. Angel.
Yeah, well, one of the things that NASA did, which I think is one of the best things that NASA's ever done, Level 4 was creating as a training ground for engineers, right? So we were all certified. If we took the same training as the techs, we were certified to do technician work on flight hardware, which allows us to learn what it takes. And personally, as I moved down my career to become a project manager and engineer, planning, I had an idea what it took to do something because I did it myself, right? And we used to I was certified for torquing, for bonding, for mass specs, for all kinds of different things that I did myself. And I usually, if the job required 2 techs, I schedule 1 because I counted myself as a tech, right? But a lot of people that worked around there didn't know about that situation. And we had a contract with Boeing to give us technicians. But that contract stated that NASA engineers could do technician work. It was in the contract. But a lot of McDonnell Douglas people didn't know that. So they knew that Mikey and I were civil servants, and they would see us walking around with a wrench, and they would turn around, tell their management and tell the union, and it would go up their chain across the top to, Conway or whoever, and then down, and Dean would get the call.
Yep.
Very
Oh,
interesting. Huh.
We had a few of those.
He saved their butts a bunch of times, yeah.
Sounds like you wanted to wear your certificate badges all up and down your, your neck.
Well,
on there.
certifications, we had to prove we had the certifications.
Oh, yeah, no, we had those on the back of our badge. We had a little card, which actually I still have it.
Yeah.
Little card that has all the classes that I
That
took.
we had to take it at that. And just one other quick story.
Yeah, of course.
When we did this mission, there's a lot of the German companies and foreign companies that worked on this hardware. Okay. Well, they were very proud people, and they would put their logos. Some of them were stickers. Some of them were painted right on the front of the rack. Okay, wherever this experiment was, the person or the organization or group or company that made that experiment, they put their logo in there. These things are beautiful. And I can say some were painted right on the front of the rack. Well, we get this letter from headquarters. We're doing closeouts, and it says, you got to cover up all those things or remove them. We go, what? It says, yeah, because you're promoting a company. NASA can't promote a company, right? And these are foreign companies, so NASA can't do that. You need to remove these logos. I go, there's no way. I says, yeah, it's just, these are beautiful things. And so, what do you do? What's the solution? Headquarters says you got to remove them. I don't want to remove them. They're beautiful. What do we do? I said, well, let's see. There's Velcro all over the place. Why don't we just cover them with Velcro? because they can use Velcro to stick things to, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll do that. We won't destroy them. We'll cover them up. Everybody be happy, right? So I spent, I don't know how many hundreds of, maybe more than, maybe less than 100, putting all these Velcro strips over all these beautiful logos and patches and things.
100 hours of work.
Yeah, to do that. Well, we launched the mission. We get on orbit, and the camera's panning around in there, and you see all these logos, right? So our boss at the time, the big boss, John Conway, who's director of payloads at the time, he comes running in the office. He goes, Haddad, I thought you were supposed to cover all those things up. I says, John, I did. I covered them. Here's the paperwork. Here's the closeout photos.
Wow.
And evidently they got on orbit, and they just peeled the Velcro off of all these logos. So the people.
You remember the golden egg story?
No.
Trying to leave names out, but there's a airline company in Europe whose logo is a golden egg. My ex-wife was the stowage engineer on D1, and one time they went in, opened one of the stowage containers to look for something, and there was a golden egg in there. One of the European astronauts cut the foam and put the golden egg in and closed the store. Didn't tell anybody.
I never heard that.
Huh.
Yep.
So that's just some more stories.
Good story.
Apparently
You can
he
only
had a
get
deal
them
with the
here.
company that
Marty,
he would
here's-
show up in space holding the golden egg, and he will get some money.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Very interesting. We got a few more stories to tell here and some pictures to show. We know our regulars are enjoying this wonderful conversation with Angel Otero. Angel, you bringing so much to the plate today. We really appreciate that. And, well, we want you to know that you've made a bunch of friends here on our Stay Curious program.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, the next one, which is 33, that's basically.
Wait, where'd we
let's see.
go? Oh, you know what, Marty? We never checked it. All his pictures didn't load up.
I didn't have a chance to check anything.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, basically, it was the remaining photos are basically, we can probably go to that one with the
yeah,
with the module. Yeah,
we got a little under there, but some so
Basically, the remainder ones was just pictures of it going in the orbiter, and then we had a kind of a graphic showing how, again, this is the first time that a payload on the shuttle is controlled from outside the United States. Okay.
that took a lot of Johnson Space Center cooperation, I would think, Angel, or Marshall Space Center too.
Marshall.
Yeah.
Yes,
As I open up my mouth, I'm seeing really Marshall's the one that's running
The
it.
POC was in Marshall, the Payload Operations Control Center.
Mhm.
And that was way before my pay grade at that time. So I'm not how they cut that deal, but they agreed to have the payload operations occur in Germany at the GSOC.
Right, and so that's why doing Angel, because he had done so much work, they requested him to be there during the flight. And we had a couple picture of Angel in the German POC, the GSOC, which it was called at the time.
Yeah.
And if you want to tell the story about the one picture we got, if we don't have it in there, but you can tell.
Oh yeah, well yeah. It's there's 3 pictures there that were pictures that I was not even aware they were taken. I was staying at a house in this small town next to Oberpfaffenhofen. There was some lady that had some deal with NASA that she gave her upstairs loft for rent to NASA people when they came over, right? She worked at GSOC, and she took pictures. And some of those pictures, I was in the picture. And I had no idea she was taking the picture until months later that I got a letter from her with a bunch of pictures that, I guess you can't see them now. But one of those pictures, it's a really important picture to German people because it's the moment that the shuttle launched for D1. And you see
Put that up there, and I can show it
GSOC
on the
people are
screen
all
here.
clapping. They're all, really proud
Oh.
because.
Right there.
Right.
Yeah, we apologize. We will have you back on again,
Okay.
Angel, and show
So-
these pictures
What I'm
because
the
going to
picture
try to
that-
do is I'm going to get it up here,
Yeah,
Angel.
I'm
on the
gonna
computer.
show. No, we can't. Can we?
Well, we can just show it on the TV. Can we show it like
I don't
this?
think it'll show things.
It won't show now.
Yeah,
It won't
you-
show.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's not gonna show
No,
things on
it's getting blocked by the green
there.
screen.
Yeah. We'll
But-
apologize for that, our friends out there, but
One of the pictures that Mikey was talking about is myself sitting next to Ulf Merbold, who was the first German astronaut to fly in space, and he was the second coming of Elvis Presley in Germany,
oh, is that right?
or at least he thought so.
At least he
So-
thought so. Okay.
The Medea rack, and this connects back to the vent line that Mikey was talking about. the Medea rack had a sense because it's a furnace, so it had a big door that, they needed to open to replace the samples. And something that sometimes it becomes really unrealistic. It's physically impossible if, for example, the valve that closes the chamber failed and the chamber goes into vacuum. It's literally impossible for a human being to take the 14 psi that is on this side against vacuum on the other side and open that door. It would just be impossible for that astronaut, especially with no gravity, to help him, hang, plant his feet or whatever. But safety would not allow them to have that there unless they had a safety pin that if the sensor was reading zero pressure inside the chamber, the pin would not release and it would not let you open the door. The very first day of the 2-week mission, the pin won't release. And we all know, we're all sure that there is no vacuum in the chamber. The sensor failed. And apparently the failure mode for the sensor was to read zero, so the pin would not release. So I had to work with the German team to write an in-flight maintenance procedure to take the whole front of the rack off, find the wires that went to the sensor, clip them off so that the pin would release. And then we could run the rest of the mission, right? So I wrote the procedure. And again, this is something I did every day, write procedures to put flight hardware together or to integrate flight hardware. And I knew the Space Lab module like the back of my hand back in those days. So I knew where the tools were. I knew which rack, which drawer in which rack, and I knew which size it was needed to take things apart. So I'm quoting, go to rack 1, drawer 7, L7, remove 916, nut driver, blah, 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 all that stuff, right? So we're in loss of signal time, and I go over to the control center. I was in the user room, which is a side room, just like in the US, a side room. So I go and sit down with with Ulf, to talk about, and this was going to be my 15 minutes of fame. They were going to have me talk to the crew through the procedure, right? So in the picture, you can see my hand is like this, and you can see the white knuckles because I'm about to drive my pencil through his ear because he was taking my procedure and deleting things like, you don't need to tell him that. You don't need to tell him that. They don't, and I'm trying to say, they don't have time to go back and get should know the wrong nut driver. I know it's a 916 nut driver. He didn't want me to say that. He didn't want to let them, So I'm arguing with him. And while this is happening, we hear from from JSC that safety and the crew office liked the way my procedure was, and they send it exactly the way I wrote it up to the shuttle. They telefaxed it to the shuttle, right? So I was like, take that, Elvis. Right? And then I panicked because it was in my handwriting. It was not typed. It was in my handwriting. So there's another picture where I'm sitting there like this, back at the user room, and just worried about, oh crap, what if they hear an airtogram 1 that they cannot read this? And I figure I'm going from Germany back to Puerto Rico because Mikey's never going to let me live that down, that they can't read my handwriting, right? Because the other part of the story was, as we were waiting, 2 or 3 German guys walk in to tell me that they decided that to make sure, because it's so complicated, blah, 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 that even though they had the procedure in English, they wanted to talk to the German crew that was going to do the work in German. So I'm in Germany, surrounded by a bunch of Germans. I'm not going to argue with them. So there goes my 15 minutes of fame, right? Well, I found out later from one of the German guys that, like Mikey said earlier, they were told only English on Air-to-Ground 1. And they were looking for a way to speak German on Air-to-Ground 1.
Yeah,
and this flight maintenance procedure gave them the opportunity to say, okay, well, go knock yourselves out, right?
Who knows what they said about you behind your back, right?
It's awesome.
At least some of those guys liked me because I saved their experiment because they had no idea what to do. And as we were writing the procedure, I had to sit down with a bunch of guys who didn't speak English to go over the drawings. And I'm picking up words here and there that I learned, and where they're pointing at things. So I had a couple of guys that spoke English, so I was in between the two, trying to figure out, okay, what I needed to do so I could write the procedure. What is it that we need to do? What is it that doesn't work? Okay, and this is what I would do. I would write it, da, 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 and that's how we got it done. And the mission worked. The experiment worked for the rest of the mission.
And that's because he was critical and knew what to do. That's why he was there. That's why they brought him to Germany.
And I was a civil servant.
That is excellent. Excellent. Good stuff. Thank you, Angel Otero. What great stories. We know Cynthia Rossi's enjoying this. She loves getting astronaut autographs. Steve J at the Lake County Spaceport is watching Stay Curious on our YouTube channel. Dave Stange. Dave Stange said he was in Germany, I think. Yeah, he is in Germany there. He's one of our number one watchers since day one there, Angel. Carlton Bailey's a rocket photographer. Hey, CB, glad you're watching. Bill Whiting. Good to see Bill watch. I haven't seen Bill since he's been back, but I'm glad that you're back. Tom Usiak is in Pennsylvania watching the fall colors. Doug Forrest is he's outside of JPL.
Oh, okay.
In Los Angeles there. Gary Gerald is a onion farmer up there in Georgia. We did a program with Gary on farming and GPS systems and all. Hello, Angel, says Tom.
Hi, Tom.
All right. Hi, Tom. And Cliff Watson is in Pomona, Australia, enjoying the beginning of spring there. And he's a faithful watcher of ours, as we have so many.
Wow.
As we're on YouTube, people watch live at 4 o'clock or whenever they want to. Over 400 of our 900 plus episodes are on YouTube, and I believe we made $5.47 last month.
Oh.
So watch those commercials.
Here you go.
On our YouTube channel. In fact, I saw a United Launch Alliance commercial when I was watching. So that's good that we're attracted to that.
Excellent.
So you gentlemen have anything to say about these astronauts? A record 8 taken up on the space shuttle, 7 men and 1 woman. That had to be a bathroom situation they'll never forget.
Yeah, he's showing the great.
I have.
I'm showing
it's not
the crew photo here.
The crew photo.
It's not a D1 story, but it's an overall astronaut story. And I know this from my ex-wife. Before she worked on Space Lab, she worked on shuttle, and they used to, since you don't want stuff spraying around in space, they have attachments when you have to go use the bathroom, right? And they were having problems because there were some leaks, because they had large, medium, and small, and not a single astronaut would grab the small.
Right.
So
for the urine collection device.
Yes. So my ex-wife had to go in the mid deck and change the labels to medium, large, and extra large. The attachments were not changed. They just changed the labels to medium, large, and extra large, so that somebody would be more comfortable reaching for the medium rather than the small.
Interesting. Well, only from you space workers do we get wonderful stories about our fabulous shuttle era. Thank you, Angel Otero, for really
my pleasure
enhancing our program here. We look forward to having you on again, as Mikey has brought us so many great people like Maynette Smith and Delgado.
Yeah, Luis Delgado.
Oh, Louis.
Yeah,
Louis was my office mate.
Of course, was he? He's been on a couple times. We enjoy Louis. We've had, of course, Scott Vongen's been on here, and J.D. Bartow has been on here, and who else?
Jim Suderman.
Oh yeah.
Oh gosh, we had a whole bunch. I'm gonna leave somebody out. But Tracy Gill was here.
Tracy Gill, like Tracy Gill. Yeah,
I know Tracy. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun, Tracy. All right, but and we've had a lot of fun with you, and I know people have really enjoyed it. Marty is nodding over there that he's enjoyed today. Marty, we have anything to button up over there on our Streamlabs program?
No questions or comments, just a lot of favorable remarks about really enjoying the show.
Oh, that's great. That's good.
We appreciate that. And you can see those remarks live as you watch the show unfold, or go right at the end of the show and you'll see all of them there on YouTube there. And we appreciate your comments. And this is how the American Space Museum preserves the birth of America's space age in what we call its delivery room, Brevard County, right here. And that Brevard County is right there on our map there. Okay. So, Angel, you having good fall weather there in our nation's capital area?
Thank you. You two guys down there.
Yeah, we are. Good,
Yep.
beautiful day
Okay.
today, finally.
It's
I
beautiful.
appreciate the opportunity to be on and seeing Mikey again. We haven't seen each other in a long time.
It's been a
Oh,
long time,
good.
Angel. Yeah.
Good.
We were office mates too. We did a lot of fun stuff together and a lot of
Oh,
work together.
Mike is the oldest friend I have since I started NASA. I've known Mikey for 40 years.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
you're a good guy, Pac. I call his nickname's Pac. I call him Pac. I
Ditto,
call him Pac
yeah.
all the time.
I would give anything to go back to some of the newspaper people I worked with 40 years ago and enjoy a conversation. So that's what we're all about, putting all these
Yep.
people together. And Angel, we will put you together again on a program. Mike, you'll have you on one month again.
Be happy to.
And we'll show you those pictures there.
Yeah.
And
happy.
I've got your email, and I'll be in touch with you about a couple other things, my friend.
Sure.
Anytime,
Roger.
please come to the Space Coast, and we want to take you out to dinner and show you around our museum here. So
I'll take you up on that.
great, Marty. Thank you for a great job today, and Trekkie Techie Jessica Galloway. We couldn't have got it together without her. We went a little late today as far as our broadcast time, but that's okay. Important thing is we provide a great program for you all out there like we did today. Mikey Haddad, God bless
Thank you again, Mark.
and all you stand for, my
Thank you.
friend.
Appreciate it. Andrew, you take care of yourself now.
All right,
You too, man.
Everybody enjoy the big full moon rising up wherever you live the next few days.
Mhm.
And until our next show tomorrow, I'm Mark Marquette saying we can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.
Live long and prosper.
You bet. All right.